everyone, this is Heather. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I've got a card tutorial for you to make this really sweet baby card with the mother bird and the baby birds in the nest. It's really sweet. It would also work for a family moving into a new house as well. So today we're going to be using a couple of sets from the new Stampin' Up! Occasions catalog, and this is Flying Home. And as always, sorry for my overhead lighting, we're going to be using the birds in the nest, but there's also a really sweet birdhouse hanging from flowers with a little bird, a trio of birdhouses, some little individual birds and butterflies, and a bee. This is a really sweet set and absolutely fun to color. You could do watercolors, markers, lots of colored pencils, lots of fun ways to color these in. So if you like to color, this is a really great set. And then I'm also using the congratulations words from In the Trees. And this is a really cute set with lots of banners and things that you can hang from a tree to make like a cute kind of backyard scene. Words and squirrels and clouds and everything. Really, really cute. We're just going to be using the congratulations words from that set. So what you're going to need is a cardstock base, and I'm using a green cardstock base. I just took an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock, cut it in half, and scored and folded it. Then also a piece of brown cardstock, and this has been cut to 5 1/4 by 4. And then a piece of watercolor paper that has been cut to 5 by 3 3/4. And I am working on the smoother side. There's a side that's a little bit rougher, but I am using the smoother side. We're going to do some ink blending, and I like the way that the watercolor adds a little bit of texture, and the ink seems to move a little bit more smoothly on watercolor paper. And then for the stamping, we'll also just need a square. I've just cut this to 3 3/4 square, just as long as it's big enough for your stamp. And we're going to be using alcohol-based markers today, and I like to use 110-pound cardstock. Just feel like I get a little bit of a better look with that, but you can use whatever white cardstock that you have, and then also some sequins. So to start out, we're going to be working on our watercolor paper, and I am using a craft mat. You don't have to. You could just use a scratch piece of paper or any type of a slick surface. If you have a glass or acrylic mat, you could use that as well. So we're going to be doing some ink blending. I'm using an ink blending tool from Tim Holtz and Ranger, and this is the one that has the sponge, the round sponge on it that is Velcroed on, and you can get replacements for it, so you can kind of have a different sponge for each color. So I'm working with 2 different blues. I'm starting off with Bermuda Bay Stampin' Up! Ink, and then I want a slightly darker color, so I'm going to be then moving on to Island Indigo, also from Stampin' Up! So you just want to get a good amount of ink onto your sponge, and then just in a swirling motion, starting off of the paper on the craft mat, just start to move into your paper. And just pick up some ink and just keep that nice swirling motion going all around the edges. And I left the center of my card not quite white, but I wanted it a lot darker on the outer edges and kind of fading into a lighter color blue on the center. So you can just keep working. That swirling motion stops it from getting any kind of harsh lines on your paper there. So we're just going to keep working on that. So I'm going to add a little bit more of this Bermuda Bay, and then go in all around the edges. Let's get a little bit more here in the center just to kind of smooth that out. So I'm doing this quickly, but you can take your time and lay down as much color as you want. So hopefully you can see how I have just a little bit of a lighter amount of the ink color in the center. It's kind of building it up darker around the edges, but I wanted it to be just even more darker on those edges. So I'm going in with the Island Indigo, and I'm using the same sponge, but if you've got lots of extra sponges, you can switch them out. So now I have an even darker color along the edges, and just work to get that kind of gradation. So it goes from darker to light. If you get a big smudge, you can just kind of go in and keep smoothing it out. That's what's so nice about these blending tools. So you get the idea. Like I said, you can take your time and really work it in, and if you want a little bit more of the lighter color, you can go back in, but just give yourself a bit of gradation from the outside in, and it just sort of pulls a focal point in towards your image to have that darker on the outside and lighter towards the center. So pretty happy with that. Like I said, I would probably take my time and work on it a little bit more if we weren't on camera, but that gives you the idea. So we are done with that. I'm gonna grab our white cardstock and do some stamping. Our craft mat out of the way. Oh, and you can just take a just a damp paper towel, and all of that ink will just completely wipe off the craft sheet. And I don't know if I said this, but this is also Tim Holtz product from Ranger. So let's grab our cardstock, and because I am working with alcohol-based markers, I am stamping with Memento. I'm just using Memento Black. I'm gonna stamp up my nest and birds, make sure I get a lot of good ink coverage. And one thing that I wanted, I didn't want the image just floating in the center of the card, so I extended the branch outwards myself. So when you stamp it on your cardstock, make sure that you've got enough room so that you can draw that branch out a little bit more. So let's get a good image stamped here with the Memento. That looks really good. Set that stamp, and for now set the ink off to the side. So I'm just taking my marker and just starting it on the edge of that branch and just pulling it out. Really simple. It is not hard to do. So now I just have a little bit more length to work with when I put that down on my card. And that is something that you can do to a lot of stamps. If it's not exactly what you want, you can add a little bit more with a marker, or if you have a little section that didn't stamp perfectly, you can go in with a thin tipped pen and add a little bit more to it to kind of fill that in. So I'm going to be using the Stampin' Blends markers from Stampin' Up! To color in. So for the birds, I'm using the two colors, light and dark, of Bermuda Bay. And I'm just going to color my birds in, leaving the beak blank so I can color that in. And I chose the Bermuda Bay so that it went along with the background ink that we blended to kind of help tie everything together. So now I'm going to grab the darker Bermuda Bay and add just a little bit of shading. I'm going to add some to that wing and underneath the body, anywhere that you think there'd be a little bit of a shadow. I'm going to add that in. And then if you want to go back over with a lighter color and blend those two together, you'll get a nice blended look without such a harsh line difference there. So there's the birds in the Bermuda Bay so that they match the inking that we've done. I'm just going to take the light daffodil, color in their little beaks, add a little bit of yellow there. And now I've got the light and the dark old olive for the leaves. So I'm going to color in all of the leaves in the light olive completely, and then go back in with the dark and add some shading. So there's the light. And then kind of on the underneath of the leaves, I'm going to add just a little bit for shading. And I did not go back over this with the lighter color. I really liked the definition that this gave. It's totally up to you how much blending you want to do. So that just gives it a nice little shadow. So now we're going to do the nest, and I'm using the bronze and the light and the dark crumb cake, and I'm going to be using a kind of a flicking technique with the marker to give it that bit of texture. I don't want to completely color the nest in, just to kind of give it that sort of woody twig look. So I'm just taking the light crumb cake and just flicking so I get little streaks kind of all over the nest there, but leaving some white space. I know that's light, but hopefully you can see that. Then I'm going to go and do the exact same thing with the darker crumb cake. That shows up a little bit better. Just kind of go in and add some flicking there. Again, just kind of leave some white space kind of in there. So now you're starting to see that cool twiggy texture. I'm going to do the same thing with the bronze. So now we have all these different brown colors in there and some nice texture. So just flick that color in there. Add a little bit more. So doesn't that look nice? It looks very realistic with that cool flicking technique. And then I'm also using the bronze to color in the branch as well. And the bronze does not have a light and a dark. It is part of the flesh tones. Goes along with the ivory. So now I've colored in the branch and I am done coloring, and there is no die for this, so I'm just going to use my scissors and just cut this out and leave just a little bit of a border. This does have a lot of spaces and it will take a little bit of time to cut out, but it's not too difficult. Just take your time and, you know, only cut in as far as you're comfortable with cutting into the different sections. Sorry, I'm off camera a little bit there. And so I am going to stop the camera and finish cutting this out, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I am done. I have just carefully cut all around my image, leaving a little bit of white space there. I'm gonna pull my card base and my brown cardstock over, and I'm just gonna adhere the brown to the green. Just get that centered. And now I'm going to do the same with the watercolor paper. Adhere that in the center of the brown. And now before I adhere the bird down, I want to pop it up, but I don't want it to get in the way of stamping out the word. So I'm just going to kind of figure out where I want it to be. And I'm going to grab my memento again and grab the words. Get those inked up. I'm going to stamp that right below the nest. Looks good. Now I'm going to grab some foam squares and adhere down my image. Okay, and so now I'm going to take one of the squares and just cut it down to a sliver for the branch. Those little pieces out of the way there. And take off that backing paper and adhere that to the card. There we go, and we're gonna put that so that the branch there is right at the end of the watercolor paper, like that. And then I wanted to add just a little bit of bling to it, so I'm gonna add a few sequins with a couple of glue dots. So you just kind of scatter those. Whoops, they're sticky and they stick to everything. So just kind of scatter those around so we can put some sequins down. Grab a few of these and just adhere those to the glue dots. And get everything out of the way. Whoops, that one popped off. There we go. And so now we have a really sweet baby card. This is really quick and simple, but really pretty. I love the color combination. It's very, got a lot of a nice nature look to it. Like I said, this would also make a really great, like, welcome to your new house for a family. So just real quick, simple card. I like the flicking technique to add some texture and just a little bit of bling with those rhinestones. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this quick and easy baby card. And please check out my channel. I have lots of other card tutorials and product reviews there. So until next time, this is Heather. Have a great day. Bye.